That's really annoying. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Discover Tai Chi, live from the tea house. My name's Phil Sheridan.
Hello, good morning, folks. Nice to have you with us. My name's Helen. As Phil says, we're Discover Tai Chi. So if you've never joined us before, we do Tai Chi. We do the evidence-based bits. We do the bits that we know there's good evidence for in the research. We love exploring those bits and yeah, just all the fun bits too.
Yeah, we make our classes and all our resources fun and engaging, but at the same time backed up with evidence. So that kind of sets us apart a little bit from many other folks. Who've we got joining us? So do say hello in the comments and we'll say hello back because we're friendly that way. And we'll get started in a couple of minutes. But yeah, do say hello, join in the chat. If you have any questions or comments, please do post them as well, and we'll answer those questions and comments straight away. So
there we go. So first in the room today, Dorothy made it first through. So good morning, Dorothy, and quickly followed by Maggie. Good morning, Maggie.
Thank you, guys. Not that any of you get prizes for being first, but it's lovely to have you in there. So hello, Anne, as well. Hello, Chris. Hope you're okay. So you had a look at last week, so you'll know that this week we continue exploring the steps that are built into Bao Fa Wu Bu. So we're moving into part 2. So we'll be looking at those steps in greater detail. We'll also be revising what we've already done in part 1 for those people who haven't seen those initial videos. I know some people are digging back through the crate, so to speak, on Facebook groups and our Facebook page to find those previous videos, but we are actually just going to review in not quite so much detail where we've come from as well. So we've got quite a few folks. We've got Ali, great to have you with us.
Good morning, Ali, and also hello, Denise. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Denise. I'm going to embarrass you by saying happy 50th anniversary, I think, wasn't it? 50th. So yeah, I saw that on Facebook. So congratulations.
So look, yeah, if anyone else has got any good news, I think we all like a good news story at the moment.
Yeah.
If you've got anything nice to celebrate, please do let us know so we can share it and help everyone share the good news too. So that's always good to hear.
So it is the season for rain and greyness, certainly here in the UK. So we're getting cozy with our, and I can't pronounce it, this Danish
word
concept of getting cozy. It's spelt Hygge. I pronounce it very badly by just calling it hig, but it's more like hygge, something like that. If anyone has the correct pronunciation and you can get that in the chat box, you'll get a special prize of just our immense gratitude. But yeah, we're beginning to think about getting cozy and wrapping up and seeing ourselves through the winter as we do so. So what have we got on today, Hel? What are we going to chat about and what are we going to do?
So we're going to have a little bit of an update. We've got a little bit of news for folks and then we'll crack on with some nice easy movements to warm up to and then get straight into the Bao Fa Wu Bu. So nice and easy day.
Okay, so let's kick off with the news. So we've got some new team members. Let's take this banner down and you might just be able to see them. So let's hide that. There we go. Where are they? They're there.
I'm going to put my knees in front so you might be able to see them.
These 2 new team members. We've got Woody. I'm going to hold it in front of Hel's.
You may have actually, you may have seen Woody about before.
But Woody's going to feature in our classes, both online and in our live classes, along with our very newest team member, Jeffrey the giraffe. Let me hold him in front of me and you might be able to see Jeffrey the giraffe, who's quite animated, gets quite excitable. So That's it. We're just introducing you to Woody and Jeffrey, who will be featuring soon in a live or Zoom class. So yeah, if you're interested in what these guys are going to get up to,
do check out our Go Team Up. We can book into a Zoom via Go Team Up, or you can check us out. Okay. I've been disrupted by
Sorry. We've been disrupted by Ali, who has said Wooga,
or
Huga, which because she's got a Danish family.
Right.
So have we pronounced that correctly, Ali, or am I still making a terrible mess of things, which I tend to do in any case? But it looks like Huga. So yeah, Helen's probably doing it far better than I am. But yeah, thank you for that. That's great. And I think the general gist is that it's creating a nice sense of coziness. So often there's candles, you have some nice warm hot drinks, get wrapped up in a blanket. And if you've got a fire like we have behind us, we haven't got it lit now, but when it begins to get very cold, we'll have our fire lit and we'll create a nice sense of coziness. So yeah, that's what we're aiming to do. So that's our new team members.
So yeah, we're on Zoom on a Wednesday morning, and and our live classes are in Keighley at the moment. We're still able to do face-to-face classes, but there we go. So yeah, as you know, we like to bring sort of things to our classes that liven them up a little bit. We have all sorts of props and silliness often in class, so these are our latest ones. So what else is happening today?
We've got a second award. The what's called Big Local, Keighley Big Local, because Keighley, where we live, has quite a significant areas of deprivation, economically, socially. There's money available to assist the community in those areas, and we've been able to get hold of some of this money to help develop some of our offerings in the Keighley area. So one of those ideas is maybe to get a class going at Central Hall in Keighley, but right now COVID is throwing a spanner in the works with that one. But we've also got money to be able to spend in other ways and produce other resources. So one of those resources is going to be some audio downloads that people can use at home or take out with them for a kind of mindful, embodied wellness experience. Is that a reasonable way of describing it?
Yeah.
Using themes from Tai Chi philosophy as well as Tai Chi practice. Again, to kind of help people de-stress and also begin to engage with the world around them. So that's something that we've got planned, and I've actually got a meeting this afternoon with a lovely chap who runs a recording studio here in Keighley called Jam on Top. It's run by both Brian and Tracy Leach. They've had some amazing bands there. You wouldn't think it, but Keighley can attract global name bands and producers to this humble little studio in a mill, only 2 minutes from where we live. So I'm going to be heading over there, and Helen's going to be joining me later to have a chat about making some really high quality audio recordings. So not just me recording in my bedroom, but actually making recordings in a studio. So we're hoping to give you some high production value recordings. So that's one thing that we're doing in Keighley. The other thing that I'm doing this afternoon, this is a bit of a personal plug, I hope you don't mind, is I'm going to be on the new Keighley community radio station, and I'm going to be having a chat with two lovely chaps who have their show on Keighley on. It's called, you look Keithley on Air up on Facebook as well as on.
Yeah, just to let you know, it's air as in river air, so it's
Keithley
on.
Sorry.
Keithley on Air as in AIRE, because we're right next to the river air. So
once we get started and Helen gets moving, I'll start putting links in the chat box for you. But I'm going to be talking about my book, shameless plug, which is doing tremendously well, I have to say. It's getting some fab reviews, Crossing the River Lethe. It's my second poetry collection. So basically, we're going to be talking poetry because one of the chaps who's going to be interviewing me is a poet themselves in the local area. So we're going to be chatting poetry and all kinds of things. So I hope that sounds interesting. And I've got a big pile of books. If you want a signed copy, let me know and we'll get you a signed copy out to you. Or if you want to buy it off Amazon, you can do as well. There you go, plug over. We'll say hello to Judy. Good morning, good to have you back with you and with us. And it's also good to know that Ali says, yes, Helen has got it. Okay. Yeah, and I obviously didn't.
More practice.
More practice. Okay. So, any other questions from folks before we get starting? I think that's all the news. New team members, big local grant, Keithley on Air. Our website is coming on. It is live, so you can go and visit it at discovertaichi.uk and begin to have a look. There's still a few bits and bats that we're working on, but technically it is now our website. So do have an explore and do let us know what you like about it and if there's anything that you would like us to change. Right, that's it. I think it's time for Helen.
So get yourselves ready. So as always, people can stay seated if you like, but if you are going to stand with me, then do make yourself a little bit of room. Make sure you put your drinks out of the way. If you've had a cup of tea like us, make sure drinks go out the way, the cats and dogs are out of the way, and the floor's clear.
Okay, don't forget you can do this sat down as well. And so I'm going to get out of the way as well and come back in about 15 minutes or so, and Helen will take you through some movements. So see you soon.
So first of all, we're just going to get loosened up a little bit so you can move the feet, shake out a little bit, loosen up, wiggle the shoulders. So this is just a little wake and shake. Take some nice easy breaths. Feel the ground beneath the feet. So you may want to give the toes a wiggle. I'm going to be back just to see if you can see my toes wiggling. I've got my little slippers on today. You might just be able to see toes wiggling. Makes me become more aware of my feet and helps me tune into where the weight is through my feet. Is it through the heels? Is it through the toes? Is it evenly spread out across through the toes, the ball of the foot, the heel? And I might shift around just to play with that. So this is what we call the weight shift. And I could see how I'm doing. Do I bob up and down a little bit? Do I go straight across? Do I have a little turn with that as I shift weight? Just play with the movement. No rights or wrongs. Just tuning in. Have a nice little shake out of the hands, nice and slow. So this can feel like jellyfish. Jellyfish have this lovely tempo to them, don't they, when they move through the water? Just this nice little tempo, ever so smooth and rhythmical, a lovely movement. Getting our hands moving. You may want to get the wrists moving by imagining you're stirring some paint in paint pots. And change direction if that's comfortable. Always stay within a safe and comfortable range of motion. So it might be easier for some people's shoulders to keep their hands down. For other people, you may want to hold up, but as long as you pay attention to your shoulders. Staying within our safe and comfortable range of motion, whether that be our balance, whether it be our shoulders, our neck, our back. It's about tuning in. So now I'm going to put my hands on an imaginary steering wheel in front of me. So here's my steering wheel. My hands are on it, and I'm going to steer to the right. I had to think that I'm going to steer the other way. So hands on a steering wheel. Steer to your right. You might want to have a little look to the right and steer to the left. Maybe have a little look to the left. But just steering. And I want you to imagine that this takes no effort. So as the hand drops underneath, it pulls the other one up. So as the hand drops on the steering wheel, it pulls the other one up. So there's no tension in the shoulders, which means that hopefully we don't have to drive like this. Because we've got a long journey and we have to drive all the way like this, we're going to be quite tense and sore by the time we get there. So I want you to imagine that this is super duper power steering, and just the gentlest touch brings one hand down, the other hand up. Effortless movement. And when you're ready, come back to center and have a little, again, little shake out. You can shake like the okey cokey. Take some nice easy breaths. So you might want to have a little go at little balance movements. So again, if you know your balance isn't too good or you're not sure how your balance is feeling, do use support. So use something. I've got a wall nearby, you may have a chair, but do use a little bit of support as we get our weight shifting from side to side. And you may want to try just lifting one heel at a time. So if I turn to my side, you may be able to see one heel come up off the floor, and I can check in with my balance, see how it feels. If I have to pull myself with my upper body over, then that's going to make it more likely that I will carry on and fall out of balance. So see if you can keep the torso nice and steady and just let the heel come up. See if you can let the torso be nice and stable, and underneath do all the work. Shifting weight, come up onto the toes or the ball of the foot if that's comfortable and you feel nice and steady. You may come up a little bit further if that feels comfortable. Some people may want to come up a little bit further. So it's good not to make this a competitive movement. If we make an end point, such as my goal is to balance on one leg, I'll lose the eye listening to what's happening right now. And have a little walk. So sometimes it's about just tuning in and listening to what's happening right now rather than skipping ahead to an end point, rushing to that end point. Maybe you want to warm our hands up. It's definitely that time of year. So I'm going to give my hands a good rub. I'm going to put them comfortably on my back. If that's not comfortable, if you have tight shoulders or you're sitting down and it's not comfortable to get the hands there, then you can have them just here. But I'm just going to give my back a little rub because that feels nice. It's this time of year, isn't it, where we want to look after ourselves. Warm hugs. A little warm up, and if you would like, you can have a little hip circle. Again, we're not rushing. Just pay attention. And you may want to pay attention to the difference if we change direction. And then have another little walk. So I've got a little bit more of a balance challenge for you now. So again, find something sturdy to hang on to. We're going to do a little movement, a little skating step. So you may want to have a little watch first. And I'm going to let one foot come up ever so slightly. So you might almost have not seen it. It's such a little lift. And it's like it's a little hovercraft. And it just goes out in a wee circle and comes back. And then I'm going to have a go on the other side. So foot just comes off the floor. It's like a little hovercraft. So, and then a little circle and comes back. So that's our movement. So keep holding on to something if you found that a balance challenge. We could also imagine that we've got a cloth underneath our foot or a paper plate, and we're polishing the floor with a cloth, little circles. Just going, feeling the weight change from side to side, polish a little circle, and come back. So we're going to try, what we notice is if we slower we go with that movement, the trickier it gets. So if you want to increase the challenge, go slower. If you want to increase the challenge, it's just a little out to the side and back. Okay, have a little walk and a shake out and relax. So we're going to go back to our steering wheel, hands on the steering wheel, and we're going to drop one hand down, one hand on top. And this time we're going to have a little turn, and then we're going to turn the steering wheel, and then we're going to have a little turn the other way and turn the steering wheel. So just going from side to side before we turn the steering wheel. And again, keeping that idea that this is a long journey. So we want to be relaxed and effortless if we can. Let gravity help. Nice and easy. Just tune into the breath as well, so you can relax with the breath once you've got movement feeling comfortable. It's the easiest journey with relaxed shoulders, elbows are relaxed. Good job, folks. So have a little relax down, let the hands go. So what we often see when people do this movement is we get very tense about it, or we pick it up and we put lots of tension into the movement. Out come the elbows, the ball comes quite high, and it becomes quite an effort to pick up tense shoulders. And it becomes a bit more like this. So in Tai Chi, we're always looking for the most effortless, graceful easeful movement. And that helps us in everyday life, because sometimes we are carrying some tension around that we don't quite need. It's going to wear us out probably quicker than we need to by the end of the day. So it's always good to check, especially when we're driving somewhere that can be very tense, can't it? If we've got stuck in traffic, can we let some tension out? So we're going to take that idea of relaxation again. We're going to have our hands, one on top of the steering wheel, one underneath the steering wheel. And this time we're going to bring one hand forward so it goes away from us. The palm turns out, and I'm going to see how little effort I can put in and still lift one hand up. The other just drifts down. And I can turn the palms and I draw back together. And again. Let the shoulders relax. Let gravity help us. In our own time, taking nice, easy breaths. So again, holding our breath takes tension, letting the breath go naturally helps us release tension. And just play with that movement. Can we soften down, maybe through the lower body as well? Can we let the back relax? There we have it. So I'm going to see if Phil's ready to come and join us in a moment. Have a little walk and a shake out. Have a little shuffle of the shoulders. And I'll hand you over to Phil.
Hello, everyone. All right, let me put my tea down. So we're picking up on Ba Fa Wu Bu. We're going to be exploring steps. We're also going to be doing a review of the earlier sequences where we were either sat down or stood in place. Now we've got to the step part, or the part two, or the Wu Bu, 5 steps or 5 directions. Check out last week's live stream. This doesn't lend itself very well for those people who need to or choose to sit down. So I'm sorry for those folks who are watching at the moment who may be choosing or needing to sit down at this point. That's why I like part 1, because it gives us lots to go at. So don't worry, we are going to come back to part 1 in about 5 or 10 minutes. Let's just explore some of those directions and some of the step sequences that we have within them. Slowly but surely, we're going to start to build in the hand movements that we practiced in part 1 with the step. But let's just remind ourselves of our 5 directions. We've got the center. Sometimes it's simply called the neutral stance. It is quite literally where we are stood in place at the beginning. So there we go. And we've got 4 directions that radiate from that central stance, which is forwards, directly backwards, and then to the right, this is my right, and to the left. So 4 directions. So a bit different, again, from some of the stances and steps and forms that we've shown you in our classes, where sometimes we are stepping on diagonals. Here we've got very simple concepts of forwards, backwards, left and right, and coming back to the center. And there's more to dig into that. Although it's very simple, there's actually more for us to dig into. Let's just practice some steps in those directions. I'm just going to come forward a bit, but make sure I'm not losing my feet like I did last time. So here we go. So I'm in the center. Let's think about stepping forward. So we can do that with a bow stance. Let's just turn out your left foot. I'm not going to mirror. You can mirror me if you like, or just know that you're turning out the left foot and the toes are pointing 45 degrees. I'm going to shift my weight towards those toes, in the direction of the toes, weight onto that left leg, and then I'm taking a pace directly forward with my right foot. I'm allowing the foot to go flat, the knee to flex or unlock, and then I'm just bringing my weight gently forward, pushing off the back leg, keeping the heel down, and my weight is about 60% towards the front leg. Yeah. And if I reverse that movement, I'm going to bring the weight back, slide the right foot back. Last thing to move is the toes pivoting on the heel of the left foot. Notice that I've come back to a hip width stance. Let's do the same on the other side. So turn the toes out of the right foot, towards the toes, and then slide a pace forward, flat, knee unlock, and then you'll see my hips this way at this point. I kind of turn the hips also forward, so I'm kind of turning into the stance as I head forward. And then if we go backwards, I'm going to turn the hips away, bring more weight on the leg, take a pace back with that left leg, and pivot the toes around the heel on the right leg, and we're back. So it's forwards. And that bow stance that I've just shown you is going to feature quite a lot. So just doing those two little steps forwards and backwards is going to pay you dividends. We can do the same going backwards. Okay, so this time the toes in this hip width stance are going to stay facing forward. If you remember, those of you who've been in our classes, we have used a clock face, and we're going to step backwards with this right foot of ours to about 5 o'clock-ish, I say, but yeah, about 5 o'clock. So again, I've still got a gap between my feet, and so there's width. I don't want to close the gap. Can you see how I've ended up on a tightrope? So I want to step to about 5 o'clock. Ball of the foot is down. Let the heel go down. I've still got my weight forward. And then I'm bringing my weight back and back. So I'm heading backwards. And most of the weight now is on this back leg, the right leg. But this left knee is still unlocked just slightly. And this front foot is down. So it's again a little different from what we've practiced in our classes in different stances and steps. So again, I hope that's interesting for you. Again, we're showing you that there's diversity in Tai Chi forms, but hopefully the principles are always present that we always talk about in our classes. So regardless of the shapes and forms we make with our body, the principles remain the same. Let's push off this back leg, come forward, and step up like so. Okay, let's do the same, taking the left leg back, and it's around 7 o'clock, or it could be on our clock face that's behind us in between 7 and 8. You decide, but we want to keep a decent width, avoid stepping directly back onto 6 o'clock, which puts me on a tightrope. Widen the width of the stance. So that's not the length of the stance, the width of the stance. Heel down, weight is still forward, and then I transfer the weight back. My prosthetic foot is going to lift the toes. Your feet need to be flat on the floor, and this front knee has a little flex or a little bend in it. I'll turn around in a moment, but for now, weight is, again, about 60% or so on the back leg. Notice that my hips have, again, turned to an angle slightly. So if we come back, I'm going to turn my hips to step back, hip on. So, sorry, square on. So I want you to be aware that the hips are doing a turn in those directions, forward and backwards. Practice those step sequences. They're really good for your knees, hips and ankles to do so very slowly, but they also begin to build a good firm foundation for you to be able to engage in these movements that we're going to be doing. Okay, let's do our steps to the right and steps to the left. And there's a number of steps that we will be doing in Bao Fa Wu Bu. One of those steps, slightly familiar to you from what we've done before. If I step to the right, I'm just going to put some weight on the left leg first so I can take a pace, get the toes down, ball of the foot, then the heel, and then I'm pushing off this left leg of mine, and I'm going to step in, but I'm actually going to close the stance. So I'm actually in quite a closed stance. More often than not, in our other classes, we ask you to maintain a hip width stance. And I would still suggest for those of you who may have quite challenged balance to do so, okay? But if we're aiming for what we would perhaps do in Bao Fa Wu Bu, we would bring ourselves into a more closed stance. Do adjust and modify to suit your needs though. So I'm here, the knees are unlocked. So you'll notice I'm kind of sitting into the stance. Let me turn to the side so you can see. Just like so, there's a little sense of springiness in the stance. So I'm not stood up, I'm sat down. And then I'm going to take a pace back and back to the hip width stance. Okay, let's do the same to the left. Your left, I'm not mirroring. If you wish to mirror me, please do. So again, pace to the left, foot goes flat. And then shifting weight, pushing off my right leg. And you can either pin and close the stance and sit into it, or if you feel that you would prefer to have a broader base of support, go for hip width stance. I'll give you some more stability. Okay. And then we head back to the center. There's a turn. Again, I mentioned this last week, similar to the brush knee turn we practiced again in the Sun style forms in classes. I'm just going to hang on to that one for the time being. Okay, I will show you what it looks like, but I'm not going to go into too much detail because it puts a lot of load on a hip. And if we've got any folks watching who may have had hip replacement recently, and by recently I mean in the last 12 to 18 months, I don't want you to practice this movement unless your surgeon or GP says that it's safe to do so, because it's a big rotational load on that hip. But let me show you what it looks like. I'm turning out and stepping into this follow step. So those of you who have been familiar with us on our exploration of Sun style forms, the Tai Chi for arthritis forms, will be familiar with that turn and follow step. But there's a big load going on there. So only if you feel that your hips are up for it should you practice this turning. So I turn my feet out. They're at 90 degrees now. One foot points forward, the other points in the direction I'm heading, and then I'm turning the hips and I'm coming into a follow step, like so. So for those of you who feel familiar and confident with that movement, feel free to practice it. If not, and as I said, if you've had a hip operation recently within the past 12, 18 months, just check it out with your doctor. It all depends on where the site of surgery was, whether it was at the front, anteriorly, or at the back posteriorly. And again, I don't want to make that call for you. That's down to your doctor, but do check in about that. I want you to be safe in that movement. So those are our 5 directions. Have you noticed we always come back to the center? So regardless of whether we go forwards, backwards, or to the left or right, we return to the center. So those are our 5 directions. So just play with those movements. You know that our favorite place to practice Tai Chi is in the kitchen. When we switch the kettle on, I can practice just going through some stances and steps. Used to feature in my early practice learning Tai Chi and Kung Fu that was very much how we learnt to move with poise and balance. Just doing that begins to take on a rhythm and a sense of timing, and it becomes very dance-like. And again, rhythm and timing is something that we explore in our classes. It's not often talked about in Tai Chi, but it's something that we're particularly aware of because that's where we're aiming to get a movement that is fluid, balanced, poised, graceful, elegant, and all of that you would ascribe to dance, wouldn't you? And we want to have that sensibility in our movement. So practice movements. It's a really good way to get yourself going on a morning, or if you've spent a long time sat down, please don't spend a long time sat down unless you really have to. Try and break up your period to half-hour chunks and just get up and have a movement break. Practice some of the movements that Helen has shown you to just break up these periods of being sat down. And if you really want to get into things, practice your 5 directions. Let's revise. Now we're heading back to part 1, where we are either sat in place or stood in place. I'm going to actually sit down for this one, just because we can, and it actually makes no difference whether we are stood up or sat down. So I'm going to join those folks who are sat down or choosing to sit down, and we can practice our hand movements right from the very beginning. So I'm not going to mirror this time. Some of you have embraced the idea of actually trying to mirror me. So again, I'm flipping the script a little bit from where we were 5 or 6 months ago, and asking those of you who have come on this journey to maybe start to try and mirror me. See how that goes. Or if you don't want to, that's okay as well. So we're going to do Qi Shi, the opening movement, and then we're going to revisit our ward off, but we're then going to come back into roll back and press. Okay, so I'm not going to go into so much detail as we did when we went through this the first time. It's more about revision, but it's also helpful, I think, for people who are watching this live stream who have only joined us recently. So are you ready? You can either be stood up in that slightly wider stance, knees flexed, legs doing the movement, or sat down with me. If we're sat down, hands start on the knees. We're using our postural muscles. We're not at the back of a chair. We're forward in the chair. Take a breath. Let go of tension. On 3, with me. 1, 2, 3. So I'm just lifting up through the shoulders, roots of the shoulders, and down. I'm going to my right. I'm holding that ball. So Helen had you holding the ball earlier, and I'm going to squeeze that ball and press my left hand. This is my left hand away. The back of a hand pushes away, and my right hand presses down on a table at my hip level. Whether you stood up or sat down, it's hip level. Imagine you've now got little bits of string tied around each fingertip, and someone in the distance is just gently going to pull the fingertips forward, like so. And then I'm going to pull against that slight bit of tension created by the string and bring my hands down to my right hip. Again, whether we're sat down or stood up, I'm going to pick up the hands. I'm going to place the palm of my right hand with my little finger edge in the crease of my left wrist, and then I'm just going to push, or it's press is the correct term, forward. So like so, pushing again the back of my left hand away. Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to do it once more sat down, and then I will join those guys who are stood up to do that movement as well. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. Chi Shi. Hold that ball on the right side. Press. And then it's called roll back. We roll back. And then we press away again, like so. And down. Okay, I'm going to stand up now, and I'm actually going to use this direction of you looking over my right shoulder so that you can follow along a little better. So I'm turning round. Again, if you're choosing to sit down, follow along. I've got a slightly wider stance. I'm going to settle into the stance, take a seat, and on 3, follow along with me. 1, 2, 3. Off we go. Chi Shi. Hold that ball on the right side, right hand on top. Presses down, and we're into ward off. Fingers get pulled away. We draw back, and then we move into press. Just like that. Excuse me. Let me have a drink of tea. I'm just going to come towards the laptop and just see if there's any questions. And if you want to write any questions, please do. But let me know how that went. Yeah, so I'm with you on that one, Maggie. Yeah, you're watching this in theory, and when you get up and are able to walk about, you can begin to practice these steps. So yeah, it's useful to actually observe, I hope. We've said it many times, but observation is really good as well. It'll actually be stimulating your brain and your nervous system to prepare you for the process of doing these movements. So that's good to know. So any questions, folks? I'm going to do it one more time, stood up, and then we'll bring this live stream to a close. Okay, so here we go. Right shoulder down in the stance. If you sat, make sure you're using good posture through the spine and through the trunk. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Chi Shi. Let's slow things down a little bit and just pay attention to the movements. Hold the ball. Ward off. Roll back. And press. Okay. So we've explored our 5 directions. We've looked at the steps involved in those directions. Next week, if you have practiced those directions, we'll begin to look at the first steps, combining them with those opening hand movements. Okay? And this is where we need a bit of floor space. So I'm giving you advance notice to hopefully enable you to create some space. Again, excuse me. And we're going to be heading forward. So we're going to be using the forward direction next week. So if you can create space for 2 reasonably large steps, that would be great if you can do that in the space that you have available. We're going to have to improvise, I think, as we go along with this, because even in this space that I've got at home, we have to kind of adjust where we are in our position, because even here we haven't got quite enough space to do it unless we take very tiny steps. But that loses some of the essence of what we're aiming for here in this particular form. So thank you for joining us. We've talked about our new team members, Woody and Jeff. They'll be joining us tomorrow in our Zoom class to illustrate some key principles. So hope to see you there tomorrow, or if not, in one of our live classes, or next week here on our live stream. And we've had some good news. We've got a grant, which is great. It's going to enable us to produce some resources and possibly get a class going here in Keighley. And I'm on the radio this afternoon at 2 p.m. I've put links in the chat box to that. And I'll be talking all things poetry and art and whatever else comes up in the hour. So if you fancy tuning into that, please do. And if not, I'll post a link on Facebook in any case when it's all up on SoundCloud. So from Helen and me, it's been lovely having you with us. I'm going to bring the live stream to a close. Don't forget, for those folks who join us other times from around the world, you guys can also ask questions as well and make comments or just say hi. And don't forget, you can also subscribe that way. There's a little logo down there, or generally if you visit our YouTube channel, which we've renamed, if you haven't already noticed, to just Discover Tai Chi. Subscribe, and then that way you get to be kept up to date with what we're doing. And then there's also thumbs up and bells and whistles and all kinds of things if you have an explorer of YouTube. Okay, so thanks very much for joining us on this rather grey and rainy day here in Yorkshire in the UK. I hope if you're in another part of the world, it's a bit nicer. And for now, get yourselves a warm drink if you're in the UK and practice some hygge. I hope that's a bit better, Ali. Okay, so stay cozy, stay safe, guys, and we'll see you next week.